So this video is gonna be like, in short, a bad description of what I think would have been the perfect book for me to read going into college. Like if I could just message back to myself in time. Um, Hopefully it's not too long. And kind of guidelines with my other video. Don't if this isn't really, if this is for you, then maybe you should hear it. If it's not, then like watch something else. This is not entertainment. Um, Info that I wish I knew. I wish that I knew how similar it would have been to high school. Now, my high school was like average. I don't know if it was average size. It was like 150 people. My graduating class, 800, 900 people total. Suburb. Um, Very privileged for that class. It's a very good class. But college, like, there was this very similar structure of like going to the different classroom and but on a much bigger scale. But my high school, they had set the bar lower than what they claimed it was, so it looked better on colleges. But like there's a lot of like stuff, like growing up stuff that they didn't really talk about. Um, One is that it's an institution, so you have. I went to public school. That's they have their own interests or motives, right? But colleges are much bigger, they're much smarter, they're more powerful. Um, they're just collections of knowledge. Right? I mean, and people, right? College is like an institution is a group founded on like religion or ideology or education or whatever that like agrees to a set of principles, I guess. But the what's also an institution, you could argue, is the internet. The internet is a very abundant source of information. That's kind of you know two parallels. It's hard to necessarily like compare, but I'm gonna try to do that here. Like you know, you go there for college, and it's like an opportunity or sea of opportunities. That's what it was described to me as. And while that is true, it's a completely different set of obstacles. You have to know how to know something. What you have to learn how to learn, and learn how to move on. It's like you're going through this 4 year or 3 or 2 or 1 or 5 or whatever period where you have to adhere to the norms of society. Now you have to follow different rules. You have to accept that. But one thing that's common about the internet and college is that they're just they're massive pools of information from which you can draw knowledge from, which ultimately is one of the largest things you're getting from college. Another one is just perseverance. You there's always things that will come up that you don't want to do. College is like taking that on and saying like this piece of paper at the very end shows that I was accountable for all these problems, which we all assume that the other end, the person at the other end of that interaction is going to be like, oh, okay, I know what you mean. But one of the big differences between college and internet is that college costs a whole lot more than going to the internet. It monetarily speaking, and regardless of whether or not you get like grants or your school's paid for, or you take a loan, or if you have to pay that money, right? That money it could have been yours. I mean, in theory, but I guess grants you can't really cash those out. But um, the like one of the it's like one of the the core similarity I think is that you have to choose how you are going to learn how to learn. You have to do it. So it's like ultimately in college, right? You have a book, and based off this book, doesn't matter what's around you, you have to absorb it. You have to know what it's trying to tell you. Hopefully, it's in the language that you speak. Hopefully, the professor didn't get a book that's 10 times as big to claim they taught us more. Hopefully, the book is low cost. Hopefully, it's available. Hopefully, they're not too expensive. But that's a different story. But sorry, I learned that from the last video. Don't do that. One of the similarities is, you have to chop it up yourself and learn it. And so I think to myself, I mean, so what's the difference then, right? If I can sit and open a book and read it in college, it's like that's the same skill that I would have had to learn. It's just to and obviously in college, there's more to that. There's taking that. It's like, most of the time you're not gonna know what it is, so you go to the guy next to you and you're like, well, yo, what is that? And you feed off each other and you're like, you don't copy his answers, don't do that. But yeah, being, you are your environment. Being in that environment, you assume that you're around a lot of people like you. That may or may not be the case. But you don't have to go to college to learn the skill. You can just do it. And so, one of the biggest differences is the payment, the loans. If that's that is such a, that should be another video. It's it's something you really have to know. You have to understand a lot about loans and a lot about people to understand the consequences that you face. Because they don't necessarily, when you're doing big deals, there are unspoken truths that it would be advantageous for if the other person doesn't say them to you. I don't know what if, that's what I think. You're not always going to know. Did you read the whole, the agreement in terms of policy, the master promissory note on your loan? Do you understand what's going to happen in the future if the Fed fucks with your money? Can you make it, okay, how are you supposed to know there's the job market? It's a prediction. You're predicting that you are going to be successful. And if you are, you've hopefully, ideally, have a better opportunity to pay that back. But that's not. It's so hard to know what's going to happen in the future. That's why you have to collect data. Social pressure. There's a lot of social pressure around college because you're all in a group and you never met each other and you are trying to learn all these new things and thinking about, oh, what's that person thinking of me, and all these attractive people and but it's the same thing, right? You have to isolate, and if you can't do it in your head, then you have to physically move yourself to somewhere where you can feel the knot of thoughts in your head and how heavy it is and how it's touching your neurons. What is it? What do you feel? What's your gut feeling? What do you think you should do? And hopefully, because you're always gonna have social pressure, but you're stepping up your game in college because you're around a lot of people who think they're gonna do good, and sometimes the institution counts on a certain amount of people failing. Ultimately, college is a lesson of growing up. You will grow up regardless of what happens. There are many lessons that you can only learn in college. Well, I'll take that back. There are certain lessons you can learn in college. And certainly there are certain lessons advertised you can only learn in college where you can just not be a student or walk in and see it. I might add to this, I might not.